Okay, welcome everybody. This is second What's Happening at the Peony Garden session of the year, and you're going to see in a few moments that everything is happening. And Ron will show you momentarily our new garden, which you saw in the first session, and that's a wonderful addition to frame the amphitheater here. And we are having a Peony Garden party. And this is a grouping of people who founded. We have founding members of the committee. We have the namesake of the committee, and we have friends of the Peony Garden Committee, which means they will be here tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, and you're invited to come and help do everything the garden needs. So you're going to get a quick introduction. We're going to save ChinWon back here for the last, so she can for sure say a few words, because she graced us with her presence by coming down from our Lee area, Jocko Valley. Is that correct? Jocko? Yes. Okay, and so let's go around the table. This is Gary Clark, and Gary's idea to have a peony garden at the university had something to do with deer who don't eat peonies, and had a lot to do with peonies who don't eat deer.
They had an iris garden here in Missoula, and they have a rose garden, and I thought peonies would be good for Missoula because they're tough as rose as iris are. And so I got to talking with Sue Talbot, John and Sue, at a concert. It was a home concert, and I talked with Sue, and Sue said, if you want to get going with it, then I will take care of some of the other stuff on it.
And lo and behold, she did. She did unto us. Okay, so that's Gary Clark, a founding father and member of the Peony Garden Committee. Sue Talbot here helped and say something.
You don't want me to work in your garden, but I'll see what I can do to raise money for you.
She does just fine as a gardener, but it's everybody that has their gifts. So, and this is Kathleen McGowan.
I'm just glad to be here and get to be around all of these beautiful flowers and lovely people.
Great. And she's a newer member of the committee. Okay, she wasn't a founding member, but we found her, and so a different kind. Okay, so here is our brand new sign, just picked up from Alpha Graphics, and it's going to get some other treatments and then get mounted, and it'll be here for the public to see. So be sure you read it in your time. Ron will run a still. Okay, here is Nancy Selden. And Nancy is a friend of the Peony Garden. She wasn't on the original committee, but could have been. But she helps tremendously. She just loves plants, loves flowers, loves helping. She's a great soul. So she's coming tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, and you can too, except this will show later than tomorrow night. Okay, I'm going to save you for end. Here is Elaine Dolson. Elaine is a professional, I could say, helper of all things, but she helps especially people with needs, and so she's with the Empower Voices, and she writes all kinds of grants to help things along. So she wrote some grants to help this along, and now we're going to help her along. So
That would be good. I no longer can come and weed, but I can come and enjoy it.
yes,
And wangle people for money.
yes. So feel wangled if you're watching this, okay? All right, here's Nancy Bugby. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and Nancy is another friend of the Peony Garden. And one time she told me, I'm not so much a groupie gardener, but every time I come to the garden, I will pick some weeds. But she's never taken a peony flower, so we honor her.
Not yet.
Not yet.
And I lived next door to ChinWon for 20 years in the Rattlesnake and have appreciated her gardening for such a long time.
I know. Yeah, the garden that started this whole thing was Howard and ChinWon Reinhardt's Peony Garden up the Rattlesnake. That was the inspiration for all of this. So here is ChinWon. We lost Howard in...
I think when we got married, I had a hostess that's made my wedding possible. We just wanted to go to the city hall, but she wouldn't hear it. She had to have a church and a garden. And she had a garden with a few peonies in the Midwest. And when they died, those old couple died, I inherited those peonies. And I was, by that time, living in Missoula. And I brought home on my lap a bag of peony roots from Ann Arbor, Michigan. And my husband's mother had brought from Midwest when they immigrated to Idaho a bunch of peonies. They took them back to Idaho. What is it? Iowa, I think it was. And then brought them back. And then when Howard was building a house, his mother gave him the start of a family peony stock. So there were two sources, and they mingled, and each year we bought one peony from a catalog, or sometimes we went to Seattle to have a look-see. And each year they grew and they prospered. I think Missoula is not a bad place to be for peony, I think. And we had friends, neighbors. They came last Wednesday in June. We just automatically, took that day, and people came, and we just had wine and cheese and beer and soft drink. And children were welcome, neighbors, friends, colleagues, and flower lovers. And it lasted forever until Sue Brown said, "Why don't you have a university peony garden?" And that's where this all started. And it's not ending, because there's a beginning of a beginning again.
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you so much. We're so pleased to have ChinWon visit us here at the garden from the Jocko Valley, where she now has joined her daughter and son-in-law and granddaughter, I think. No. Anyway, so we will go on. We're going to move our way over to the garden here because our videographer is eager to film some of our new peonies. Oh yes, thank you. Well, I mentioned earlier, was it 2021 when did Howard pass? What year? 2020?
When he died,
Yeah.
2022.
Okay. Well, we miss Howard. He was a great math professor, president of the faculty senate, president of the faculty union, dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. He was such a highly regarded and respected colleague at the university. So we're going to move on over to the garden. Oh yes, more people. Thank you. Gary keeps me on line, but he tries. All right. So this is Sandy Shepard, who was on the founding member of the committee. She was a founding member, and she is on her way back from another place, so she couldn't be here today. And who else couldn't? Mainan is recovering from some illness issues, and so she's, we hope, coming to help weed tomorrow night, but she couldn't come for the rhubarb pie. Madeline Mazurski's not a member of the committee, but she's a member of everything because she was our landscape architect for the garden. And Madeline is in Alaska, right? She's caring for her mother, I think, or living up there. Anyway, it's a bit of a romp from Anchorage to Missoula, so she declined. But she helped set up this whole garden with her computer and punched in which peonies were tallest and which bloomed first and which colors went together. And the computer helped figure it all out. Okay, so I think, is that everybody that we got? And so we're going to move on. And I promised that this fresh rhubarb pie was not made with peony stems and leaves. Okay, so we're moving on. So you guys take care, have fun. So today we're going to go through garden A, B, C, D, E, and F. And over there is G, and I mentioned in the last session that we had together that G added to the musical alphabet. So now all of the white keys of the piano, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, are named for a garden, or a garden bed named for the keys on a piano, for the names of the notes. So this is bed F. We'll come to that last. There are 252 peonies in this garden. There are 226 different varieties. That means there are only 26 of them that are duplicated. So there are, if Ron just shines quickly over here, here are 3 Eleanor Roosevelts. The official name is Mrs. F.D. Roosevelt, Franklin Delano. So here is the sign which shows ChinWon. And when we put these peonies in the garden, ChinWon said, oh, may we put 3 of our favorites in. They did more than that. But we decided that this was among their favorite peonies, Mrs. Roosevelt, if you will. And so we put 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. And they sort of frame the rock, and the rock declares the whole garden. But today we're going to go quickly through samples from the different beds. So we have 8 different beds. And here is bed A. And bed A doesn't currently have a peony. We put in a new irrigation drip thing there. But this is Alexander Fleming, who invented, if you will, he discovered penicillin. It was something in a petri dish in his house. And he said, what is that? Mold growing. Well, it turned out to save many, many, many people in the 1940s during World War II. Finally, people who were wounded had something to keep from total infection. Here's Ada Neva. So this is A2, this is A3, and the labels, I should explain, tell the name. There's Ada Neva or Ada, and there's A3 that tells the position in bed A. It's the 3rd peony in bed A. And 1999, the number tells the year it was registered in the American Peony Society, or possibly the International Peony Society, or the United Kingdom, wherever it was. So here we have a form known as Japanese. And it has 1 or 2 rows of guard petals. So the outer row of guard petals, the inner row of guard petals. And then, instead of the usual, shine over here, instead of the usual yellow anthers, filaments, and together the filaments and the anthers make the stamen, which is the pollen part of the reproductive part of the plant. And then hidden in the middle kind of are the carpels. And the carpels are the ovaries, or the female part of the reproduction. And it's kind of interesting to note, you can't tell right now because it's sunny, but as the sun goes down or the clouds come in, the guard petals do their job and they guard. Now, instead of having the yellow pollen, we don't have pollen in this one. We don't see it. The pollen and filaments, anthers, stamens, they're evolving into petal-like variants. And these petal-like variants are called staminodes because they're the first degree of evolution from the single flower to a more complex flower. They aren't double, but they are the second level of change, or the first level of change. So we have a single bloom. This, in fact, is a single over here. It looks beautifully complex because of the fringe. So this is A7. I'm skipping ahead the number. But crinkled white is an example of a single bloom where you have 1 or 2 rows of petals, guard petals, which will guard when it rains, or guard when it's getting dark, or guards even when it's seemingly getting cold. And they sense, they're like thermo and photosensitive. And this, then, the guard petal and the pollen and the stamens and the filaments and the carpels inside there, usually 3 are the reproductive and the guarding part of the single bloom. Very simple. This is, again, that evolution through hybridization. And peonies hybridize themselves. If the bees carry pollen from that plant over to the carpel from this plant, you get a new seedling. But we can't deal with them because there are already 7,500 or 8,000 registered peonies. So moving along, this is an example then of a single bloom and the Japanese bloom. So we're going to kind of differentiate. And here we talked about it last time. This is the fern leaf of ancient peonies. Maybe it was in the Garden of Eden. It goes way back. And this is the Japanese. And if the label says species instead of a year, that means wild or original or unhybridized, non-hybridized. This is another one in bed A, another single. Well, maybe not. Ufta. So this could be Japanese, but because it is evolving from the regular fertile anthers pollen to staminodes, staminodes. And here we get, these are probably already going to show something of seeds coming later. I'm not sure. Anyway, a lot to learn always. So that's bed A. And this peony back here, I should just mention, is from the Mrs. Reinhardt, ChinWon Reinhardt, and from Howard and ChinWon's garden. We got 1, 2, and then there's another one, 3 right here. and then a pink one over here, the fourth one. So those are from their garden. So that's bed A. Bed B, moving along. This one is finished for the year. It was a Memorial Day peony, and there's one that's rubra, which is red, the normal one, and this one is rosea. Rosea Memorial Day peony, to kind of mix English in. Rosea means pink. So this one is different from the one that a lot of people have in their yard. We're going to just go along in the sun here. I don't always know the name of what's back there because the label's on the other side. But this would be an example. Some would say this is becoming a double, but it's also known as a semi-double because it has more than one row or two rows of guard petals. So the petals are evolving, and the stamens and pollen are still in there, the anthers, which is the part that carries the pollen. So, some peonies have a great fragrance, and this has a very mild but very pleasing fragrance. And we tried it, and this is called Princess Bride, 1988. I'm looking at the label, so that's what everybody can do. So this is a full double, and it's approaching, well, things are interesting. It's approaching a bomb, and the bomb is when a 4th of July set of petals sort of pops out of the middle. But I have to always look them up to see what they're officially classified, because this one looks kind of like a semi-double, but I don't even want to say anemone. An anemone. We'll get to some that we know are. But this is beautiful. We don't have that many white examples, so we're happy when we get one that's pure white with a tinge of yellow, maybe from the anthers of old times. Here's another white one, speaking of not having very many whites, and this one has just a tinge of little red on the petals in the inside. And this could mean that one of its parents is an 1851 peony called Festiva Maxima, which is blooming over here. We'll get to that one. But this is a full double, meaning everything is petals and everything is guard petals. And usually they're the same color, but not always. And the petals in the middle are hiding any reproductive part. Maybe there's a little tiny wisp of a pollen stamen in there. Anyway, so that's the idea of those guys. This is finished pretty much, beautiful coral color, salmon dream. I guess you'd say salmon color. Here's Showgirl, here's Coral Charm. This is Coral Charm when it first comes out. And this is a semi-double. So it has more than 2 rows of guard petals, and it has the full complement of reproductivity. They aren't always fertile, but they're in there. This one has 4 carpels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the full roundabout of stamens, which is the filament and the anthers. So that's a semi-double because it has more than 2 rows of guard petals. Coming along, this is one of our first peonies to bloom. They're responding to the heat today a little bit. This is beautiful when it first comes out, and we do have a few more coming out. It has the true red of Christmas, and it has the true green leaves. It says green and red as historically as peonies get, so it got the name Christmas Velvet. 1992 is the year of registration, but not the year of hybridization. Usually there's 15 to 20 years of waiting to see what the peony will do over time before they dare register. Okay, that's bed B. We'll come around the backside just for a moment. This guy here is a tree peony, and interestingly and thankfully, after most of them are done and they're starting to make their seeds, which we're going to deadhead so they don't take the power away from the plant. But this is a double peony, and the carpels are showing now. But when it's fully bloomed out, well, I won't go into that. But this is this is a tree. So this is the parent of Itos, and we'll get to that as a review. But underneath here, Ron can maybe show a little bit the woody stem. So the new fresh green comes up from the nose, just like on a branch in a lilac bush or something. But the wood will not go all the way to the end. After the wood hardens for the winter, the next year's greenery tends to come out of the end of the wood. But the cross between the tree I mentioned last time and herbaceous, which is the, whoops, that's not herbaceous. These are done. Well, no, there is. Here's a new round bud. The round buds are normal. herbaceous, and I can tell you the number 209 of the 252 peonies are herbaceous. So that's the most common. This is an Ito, though. It's a cross between tree and herbaceous. Not that one and not that one, but a tree and an herbaceous. And this one came out with a yellow. It looks like semi-double because it has the pollen and the anthers and the carpels in the middle. And the leaves are the same as the tree, pointy. You point to the tree over there, very similar. And the buds are also pointy. They have a little point sticking out, and that distinguishes them from the herbaceous. But every winter or in fall, they die back all the way to the ground. This is probably one of the last blooms of red grace for the year. Big double peony. It looks like a volleyball practically, or big giant softball when it's full bloomed. These are the side buds now coming on, so they're a little smaller, but that rich color. It's one of the most beautiful peonies in the garden. White sands. This would be, it could be classified, I don't know, I'll have to look it up. Could be anemone because these central petals are called, if it is anemone, it's petaloids, not stamenos. It's the second level of change from normal single to Japanese, then to anemone. And anemone, they look different from the guard petals. But then when it blooms out more, it looks more like double, so evolving. As I said one other year, I said, what's the difference between hot and cold, and all the shades of hot and cold in between? This one is a bomb. And Ron photographed a picture of our new sign. And this bomb means that here's the guard petals, here's sort of the petaloids, and here's another whole section coming out of the center, like a fireworks display. Here's a beautiful example of the bomb if you get it from the side. And it really shows how it rises up. And even the color is enhanced. This is our oldest peony, and you're just getting to the tail end. There aren't any more buds to share. But this grows on the hillsides of western Turkey like our arrowleaf balsam root grows up in Mount Sentinel. It's their wildflower. So it is, and you look at the sign, it says species. 1768 does not mean it was hybridized. It's the year that Philip Miller in England, after he stole this, he borrowed it, he took it from Turkey back to England, the root. So we know it's a pure root still. You have to use the root to get a pure species or any hybrid. If you want a hybrid to be the same as its parent, you have to use the root. You cannot use the seeds because they're always cross-pollinated. So that's bed B. Bed C. Here's the duplicate of crinkled white. I did not point out in bed A, back in there, under the beech tree, has crinkled little indentations in the leaves, almost like somebody serrated with a knife or something. But otherwise, it's just a wonderful single or simple peony form. This is another Ito. Now we're going to deadhead and take these guys away, but the flowers are beautiful. This is officially a semi-double because of all the pollen in there and the carpels. But Itos can do their own thing almost. They're amazing plants. Okay, we're moving along. Here's another white one. Henry Sass, double. You look at it and say, all those petals in there, they're no longer petaloids, they are now petals. And we try to have the sniffy, fragrant ones in the front row so people don't have to walk back into the garden, trip and fall, break a peony, break their leg. Here's some others. And this is a salmon, etched salmon. And when it's first coming out, it's very etchy. Not itchy, but etchy. It's almost like somebody took time to distinguish each petal. It's not just sort of a bunch of petals, but a set of many, many, almost layers of petals, etched by a beautiful pen drawing, pen and ink. Another white one. I said we didn't have very many, but they are happy today. Duchess de Nemours. This one's quite fragrant. Another double with side buds. Side buds, I should point out, are given a name, and it is lactiflora. Lacta is Latin for white. So the original Chinese flower that parented all of these, not only these whites, but a lot of the hybrids of different colors, one of the parents is albiflora, like albumen is the white of the egg. Albumen, is that how you say it? You know what I mean, not the yolk, but the albumen. And then this is lacta or lactose, right? So lactiflora, now it means, because the original lactiflora peony did not just have one bud per stem, but has many buds on one stem. Usually a lead bud, this will be the lead, and 2 side buds or more. And the side buds will maybe produce smaller flowers, but also later flowers, so it extends the bloom of a plant. This is our first year of Hermione blooming for us. Beautiful little pink double. There can be little yellow anthers hiding in there, but it qualifies as double if it's pretty much obliterates the view of the inner workings. Here's another Ito, the pointy leaves, the pointy buds, but the herbaceous stems. No wood down there anywhere. And it'll die all the way back to the ground. So this is a beautiful semi-double with the pollen here. You can sort of see it left over on this guy. The pollen was making a big ring. Anyway, that's getting to the end of that one. This is also the first year, I think, of sorbet. It might be the second year of blooming. And this would be another double. Maybe sometimes they say double / bomb because it's bombing out of the middle like 4th of July fireworks. Monsieur Jules Ali. This should be and could be an anemone. I gotta look that up because this is sort of petaloid looking rather than just. When these look very much the same, then it's double, but when this looks like a different characteristic, it can be an anemone. When they enter them in peony shows, they do not distinguish between Japanese and anemone because they're so much the same that even on a different day, one can look like the other. So that's kind of a combined form. Here's another. Sometimes this is just considered multicolored, but look, these are not stamens. These are petaloids of some sort, and here's a little bomb coming out the middle, and here's a different kind of petaloid, but it's really a cross, kind of something between double, something anemone, something bomb, something semi-double. It's just interesting, but you can't really say semi-double because these are not stamens, they are not anthers, they are not pollen, so it has progressed beyond that. Okay, we're just going to look at some of the beautiful shapes. Bed C, here's a semi-double for sure. So you see that center that has complete set of anthers and stamens. This is another Ito, maybe the most famous Ito, Bartzella. Bartzella is just happy to bloom, and it's blooming out quickly because it's just warm. But when it's still coming out, it's a vibrant yellow, even more like the inside is also the outside. But then they fade in the sunlight. This is from the friends of the Reinhardts, Peter and I'm not sure her name, Stickney, and quite fragrant, I should say. And this little red tinge identifies it as 1851 Festiva Maxima. Every peony garden either has or should have this ancient 100 and how many years old? 80 almost, right? 70 something, 74. So Festiva Maxima, very strong, doesn't really need staking, but we are in this garden because there's just so many peonies, we don't want them to fall all over each other. Although when you come to see the garden, you can fall all over yourselves enjoying it. So here is the interesting, this is Ellen Collie back here, and this is Coral Charm in front, because when we took out the Coral Charm that needed to be moved because it was overtaking other peonies, a little root decided to stay. But they seem to get along pretty well. Okay, so we're getting a couple trees coming in here. Chinese Dragon had one bloom. Go on YouTube, Facebook, to the Reinhardt Peony Garden, and you will see samples of these as we're able to put them up. So, and here is another tree, and this one is Black Panther. And you can see just from the vestige of the petals how deep, dark purple that was. So it's so past purple it gets called black. You still see it's in the purple shade. Alrighty, so coming down, here's a here's another tree. This tree, it's Alice Harding. I'm not sure. This is maybe the second year of blooming, but for some reason, the flowers are tipping. And that's not all that uncommon, but they start out really strong. Here's a pretty fresh one. Okay, so that's a good example. Full double peony on a tree. Beautiful, and it even, I think it has a sniff. I'm not going to bend way down to find out. So a fragrance, and it's a tree. Next to it is an ito. You might say, well, they're the same, but you look down very carefully and you see there's no wood. Where this one has the woody stems right there, below that point. So the woody stems are the deciding factor for sure, but genetically this took thousands of tries to get an ito. Okay, so looking just generally here, bed D, this is the bouquet at the moment. Now you see it's probably 5 days ago was perfectly breathtaking. So they wilt in a way. Celebrity here, 2006, but it says approximately 2006. What that usually means is that was the first year of it blooming. So they could determine it by the bloom. Because the leaves, which can be differ from peony to peony, aren't enough to determine the flower. Here we have In's perfume. Should it sniff? Yes. And this would categorize as a balm because here's the guard, here are the petals, not petaloids, but full petals, double petals, and here's the center coming up and out. And that's even a little bit different color. So that's a very special quality in peonies, the balm. Okay, this is one of the great balms. So this is a balm where everything is the same color. This is the same color but just tinges, hues. This is a little hint of yellow where the petal anthers, the stamens and anthers were, but it comes out of the center in a fireworks display. So top brass is one of the great examples of the balm peony. Here's coral charm. When it first comes out, it always fades, but it's a pretty long-lasting bloom. So this has been going on for 3 weeks probably. And finally we're getting to the end. Here's Do Tell. I would say this is right in between Japanese and anemone. I'm going to have to look it up because it looks like it can be anemone if these are more developed. They are no longer resembling stamens and pollen anymore. Okay, so that's bed D. There's a couple other things happening at the end. Okay, we're going to do a panorama of bed E. We'll kind of survey it rather than individual petals. You can come and you can take information. You can decide if it's an ito or a tree. You can decide if it's a species, original, unhybridized. The labels will tell you, but you can try and figure it out first. And then you can see within the herbaceous, which are 209 of these are herbaceous with names, and with unique names, I should say. And you'll be able to tell if they're double form or single form or semi-double. Just beautiful. I haven't even counted this year how many peonies are blooming. Last year it was 190. And each year it's a little bit more. So we're moving, and now with our new garden over there, we're heading to 252. So I bet next year we'll have 225 at least blooming. Maybe just get down with this color. This is bed F. This should be, should be an anemone, but it could be a Japanese, but I think it's anemone. That's a single. Here's a double. Here's faded out. Here's coming on, its first blooms, Princess Margaret, named after, yes, the daughter of the Queen of England. Here's Polar Star coming on. So we have some that are still yet to bloom, that are just budding out. This is bed F. Here's this one definitely is Japanese. It's kind of stringy looking coming out of the center. And this one is Leslie Peck. If I looked it up, it better tell me it's Japanese. This one is semi-double because it has more than 2 rows. Here's only 2 rows of guard. Here's a whole bunch of rows of petals and a center.
No, even fading, it reminds me of Christmas bows.
Oh, yeah, look at that, Christmas bows. Yes, you could use it for... Hi there. Are you Andrea? No.
No.
Okay, so this is comes out as a semi-double, and maybe it technically stays a semi-double, but it looks like it progresses to hide everything in the middle. And some of the immature blooms are different from the ones that have come out lead. So just finishing up here, here's again Mrs. Roosevelt. I have to go in and see what this one is because it's so spectacular. It should be a semi-double. It's Bride's Dream. And we have Princess Bride and Bride's Dream and something else with the name Bride. That's coming up, just starting. This one is quite beautiful, Gay Paris. Here's an example of Anemone. No, this should be a double, but the center is a different color. I'm going to look it up. Gay Paris, I'll tell you next time. Gay Paris, you look it up. Gaypare. All of you watchers, go ahead and look these up. The labels again tell you everything, and the colors are just spectacular. And maybe for another week you'll get this full panorama of colors and bouquets and just happy peonies, happy to be neighbors, happy to get along with each other. The world should be so happy to be together as the peonies are. All right, guys, thanks so much for visiting the garden this way, and come in person, and come several more times before the end of June. This year everything's about 9 days early, so I don't know if we'll make it to the end of June quite, but we're getting there anyway, date-wise, so time will tell, ha ha ha. And the beautiful plaque and our friends over here and the new garden over there will bloom a few blooms this year just because they were budded up when we planted them. All right, so thanks. Come again.